Hello guys, welcome to episode 2 of this Zustand series. In this episode, I'm going to show you how you can add the editing functionality. So basically, we're going to add an edit button next to each employee. And when you click that edit button, you will see the data associated with that employee in the form for editing. And then you will be able to change that data and of course, update the employee inside of your store when saved. So we're gonna, change the app.jsx to support editing. Before I talk about this code, let me show you what I've got here. So this is the store, right? We talked about this store in the previous episode. And inside of my app.jsx, this is the code that I already have, right? So it is possible for me to, add new employees, and the employees that I add are going to show up here. For example, if I, enter my name and say, for example, lead developer department is app dev, for example, and I add the employee, right now, this button, this remove button, allows me to remove one employee, but there is no button for editing the data for that employee. Now let's see how we can handle the editing part. There are a couple of things going on here. So first off, I am, importing or using this use employee store for getting the update employee. So again, inside of my store, if you take a look, I have this update employee. So I'm going to use this action in this video. And of course, for add and remove, the same thing, right? So I am, importing this update employee, and then I am tracking the ID of the employee that is being edited right now using this local state edit ID and set edit ID. And then inside of this hook, I am checking whether there is some data inside of the edit ID. If there is some data inside of the edit ID, it means that we are in the middle of editing an employee, or we want to edit an employee. In that case, what we need to do is to find that employee based on its ID. And then if there is an employee with that ID, we're going to set the local states in this component. And these local states are bound to the inputs inside of my form, right? These are the data bindings. So, and if, for example, we do not have an edit ID, it means that we need to set an empty string to these, local states. Handle add is going to work as before, right? This is, the code for adding an employee, but the, change here is that we want to be able to not only add a new employee, but also update a new one. So first off, a simple data validation. And then as you can see here, I am checking the edit ID. If edit ID is null, it means that we are adding a new employee. There is no employee that we are, editing. So if edit ID is null, let's add that employee. Otherwise, let's use the update employee action from store to update that employee, and then set the edit ID to null. It means that we are exiting the edit mode. And of course here, whether we add a new employee or we update an existing one, after we're done, we're gonna reset the estates. We're gonna clear out the inputs. And then there are, these two buttons, these two, functions, handle edit and handle cancel. Whenever handle cancel is invoked, we're going to reset that local state, edit ID. When handle edit is called, we're going to set the ID that we get inside of the parameters to this local state. And then there are some changes in our template as well. So these are the inputs that we have. This is the button. So the button is now responsible for not only adding a new employee, but also updating or saving the changes to an existing one. And of course, we have this cancel button that is rendered conditionally. If there is some edit ID, it means we are in the middle of editing an employee. Therefore, we need to show the cancel button. So when we are editing an employee, this cancel button will show up, allowing us to cancel the edit operation, right? And then this button, it's gonna call, handle add. And we're gonna, we're gonna set the text of this button based on the edit ID. If it is null, it means we are adding a new employee. If it is not null, it means we are editing an existing employee. Therefore, the text will be saved. And then we have this UL, right? This UL is the UL that you see here, right? So the button, we talked about it, the inputs. Now let's talk about the list. So for each LI inside of this, UL, let's see what we are printing or what we are rendering. So if there are no employees inside of our store, we're gonna, say no employees added yet. But if there are employees, we're gonna map through them and we're gonna render LI elements. We're gonna render employee name, employee position, and department. And then we're gonna render a button next to each employee, allowing the user to edit that employee. And for that, button, the action that or the function that we want to invoke when the button is clicked is handle edit. And then there's going to be this remove button that we already had, right? And that's it. That's the whole component. So we need to update the component based on these changes. Let me remove the code that I've got here inside of app.js6 and write the new code. So once again, I am, creating the component. I am using my store to get the employees array and the 3 actions that I have: add employee, remove employee, and update employee. And then some local states for tracking the values of the input fields, name, position, and department, as before. And one local state for tracking the ID of the employee we are editing. And then when the component loads, we want to check whether we need to populate the inputs with the data of the employee whose ID we have inside of edit ID or not, or if we're not, updating, so let's clear out the local states. Then let's create this function, handle add. So handle add, it's very easy. Simple data validation. Then if edit ID is null, it means we're adding a new employee. Let's call the add employee action with the values inside of the states. Otherwise, we're updating an employee, an existing one. Let's call update employee action, passing the ID that I've got in the state as well as the other values, and then set edit ID to null and clear out the local states and the inputs. Now handle edit is going to set the edit ID to the ID received in the parameters, and handle cancel clears it out. Now the form or the template. First, let's create the inputs that we're going to use for adding new employees. So these are the inputs that are bound to those 3 local states: name, position, and department. Then the button for adding a new employee to the store, and the text will be either add employee or save. The next button will be the cancel button. The next thing will be the list of employees in the store. So if no employees are found, print out no employees yet. Otherwise, map through the employees, and for each one, not only render the name and the position, but also create a button for editing that employee. another button for removing that employee. And that's it. So let's close out this component and we're done. Now take a look here. We have no employees yet. Let me add an employee. I'm going to add this employee. Now I have two buttons. As before, I have this remove button, but I also have this edit button. If I click this, the values of this employee, I mean the name, the position, and the department are going to be put here. So these inputs are going to be populated with the values from this employee we're going to edit. Now I'm going to change this. For example, I want to change this to software architect, and I can cancel out, which means that the changes are not going to be persisted inside of my store, or I can save it. So if I save it, you can see that I've got my change here, and of course I can remove this as well. But the important thing here is that whenever you refresh the page, everything is lost, right? Because you're not persisting your data inside of a persistent data store, like, for example, your local storage. But that's not the topic of this episode. There are other courses on the channel that show you how to persist the data inside of your stores to, for example, local storage of your browser. I'm not going to talk about that here, and that's it. Let's wrap up this video and continue talking about this application in the next episode, which is going to be the last episode of this course.